From mysterious underground theaters to an entire terracotta army unearthed, you won't believe what else was discovered deep in the earth on 10 amazing underground discoveries. Number 10. The Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. Way back in the 1930s, the workers of the United Fruit Company were clearing the jungle in the Turkish Delta of Costa Rica when their bulldozers were blocked by an unexpected discovery. The area the company chose for their new banana plantations hosted stone spheres, with diameters ranging from a few inches to well over 6 feet. Some of them weighed several tons, and they were all perfectly shaped. The laborers had heard fairy tales of great spheres full of gold, so they destroyed or badly damaged quite a few of these artifacts trying to open them, even using dynamite. Finally, the government intervened, and studies determined that the stones were created by the Turkish culture starting in 600 CE and continuing well into the second millennium, stopping just before the arrival of the Spanish. Approximately 300 spheres survived and inspired a bunch of amateur adventures and alien conspiracy theories, but nobody has any idea what their purpose might have been. Number 9. The Great Fossilized Army of Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi. This amazing discovery was made in 1974 and still continues to baffle researchers. The infamous terracotta zombies were discovered totally accidentally by 7 farmers who were digging a well. One of their shovels hit a huge clay head, and when they let the local authorities know, archaeologists were called in to investigate. They found 8,000 terracotta figures, all life-size, and they formed a genuine Chinese army. There were soldiers, officers, archers, charioteers, and cavalrymen with their horses, all properly lined up in underground trenches to protect the emperor's mausoleum as he journeyed into the afterlife. The impressive icing on the clay cake is that every single figure is unique. They all have their own hairstyles, facial features, postures, clothes, and armor. However, the excavation is far from complete, so there are likely to be dozens of thousands of these weird figures. Number 8. The poor laborer who struck gold. Well, this is a pretty old story, and one of those fairy tale templates we all know, but this one actually happened. Way back in 1653, on May 27th, in fact, a laborer called Adrian Quinquin was working on a church in Tournai, France, and dug up a bunch of gold from the ground. As it turns out, he actually uncovered an ancient tomb with all its contents. There were several hundred gold coins, horse fittings and buckles, 300 golden bee figurines, a golden bull's head, a solid gold torque, several swords ornamented with gold and garnet, and a gold signet ring. The ring solved the mystery. It was inscribed with Childeric Regis. Adrian Quinquin had actually discovered the burial site of Childeric I, king of the Salian Franks. Tournai used to be the capital of his kingdom. The treasure was transferred into the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, but it was stolen approximately 200 years later. Nearly all of it was melted down by the thieves. 2 coins, 2 bees, and some sword fittings were all that was left, and it took ages to find them. The police finally fished them out of the Seine River in 2 leather bags. 7. A modern underground cinema in ancient tunnels. There are many ancient tunnels and catacombs running beneath the city of Paris, but some of them have pretty modern contents. In August 2004, the Parisian police discovered an actual underground cinema during a routine training exercise. It was set up in a previously uncharted cavern which had little terraces cut into the rock to serve as seats. There was a full-size cinema screen, a complete set of projection equipment, and several film tapes, including 1950s noir classics and recent thrillers. None of the films were banned or even considered offensive. A smaller cave next to the cinema was turned into a restaurant bar. The whole thing was running on a professionally installed electricity system, and there were even 3 phone lines. 3 days later, when police returned with electricity experts to find the power source, all the phone and electricity lines had been cut, and there was a note lying in the middle of the floor which read, "Do not try to find us." Have you ever found something amazing underground? Let us know in the comment section below. Number 6. A very much living underground town. In Moscow, Russia, a police raid back in 2013 uncovered a whole underground settlement. It wasn't any abandoned skeleton of an old civilization either. It was bustling with residents and activity. The Cherkizovsky Market was operating in Moscow for a while, and it was famous as being very immigrant-friendly, but it was eventually closed down. Instead of leaving, though, its former patrons took to the underworld, carving room from the ground to house around 200 residents. There was far more than 200 homes there, though. They had also built a clothing factory with an impressive 122 sewing machines, plus a cafe in the comfy Turkish style, complete with a brazier and oven, a movie theater with 35 seats, a chicken coop, and even a smoothly operating casino with a poker room. Looking at them from the outside, the underground settlement and tailor shops look just like your plain old transport garage. Number 5. A set of stolen church bells. An unnamed man from the Czech Republic was digging through his yard in 2003 and found something odd. He was going to lay some pipework when he came across a piece of metal he didn't set there. Turns out, it was 2 fairly large church bells, and they were dated to about 400 years old. A follow-up investigation revealed that the bells were stolen from a local church 11 years prior. Apparently, the thieves buried them in what later became a backyard, but for whatever reason, didn't come back to retrieve them. 4. A stashed Ferrari. In 1978, 2 kids from LA were bored, so they decided to go digging in their backyard. Soon enough, they came across something metal and huge, and with some help from locals, the police excavated a Dyno 246 GTS Ferrari. An investigation followed, and it turned out that the Dyno was stolen 4 years earlier from one Rosendo Cruz. What's weird is that none of the residents at the time noticed anything unusual happening, and they all claim to have no connection with the buried vehicle. The car was put up for private auction, and its buyer tried to pull a scam, but it eventually found the way back to its rightful current owner, Brad Howard. He cleaned it off to its original shiny metallic green and proudly stamped its license plate with a text which reads, "Dug up." Number 3. A loaf of ancient Roman bread still in one piece. Imagine leaving your bread to cool off and forgetting about it for several centuries. The oldest preserved bread was baked in the 1st century AD in the Roman city of Pompeii. Now, Pompeii and all its citizens were buried alive by the famous eruption of Mount Vesuvius, covered in volcanic ashes, which is actually pretty good at preserving remains. This bread loaf was left sitting in its oven until archaeologists dug it up. The mark, still visible at the top, was made by a Roman bread stamp. Bakeries at the time had to use them on all their goods as a way of preventing fraud by marking the source of each individual loaf. Number 2. A mysterious dig in a family backyard. The Huser sisters from Kitchener, Canada were digging around in their backyard looking for some worms to take on an upcoming fishing trip when they stumbled upon a curious find. Something transparent, shiny, with traces of blue was glistening at them from deep in the ground. The sisters initially thought it was a meteorite, but when they consulted a professor of earth sciences, he concluded it wasn't. Then a gem expert was called in, analyzed the object, and proclaimed that it wasn't a gemstone, or at least not any known kind of gemstone. He also suggested that someone had deliberately buried it in the backyard because it definitely didn't form from the minerals in the surrounding soil. It was finally identified as a type of glass used in garden ornaments. Number 1. The giant round rock in the backwoods. This kind of looks like some giants were playing dodgeball and accidentally threw their ball over into a backyard in the human world. It's actually one of the strangest things to ever be dug up in any area, just a random rock sphere. Despite looking like a big chunk of old and dirty metal, it is actually stone, although researchers have confirmed that it has an extremely high level of iron content. It was found in Poduravalj, a small village in Bosnia near the town of Zapidovici, and the Bosnian archaeologist Semir Osmanganagic says it might be the oldest stone shape made by human hands, dating back more than 1,500 years ago. There were actually many more of these stone spheres in the region well into the 20th century, he says, but many were destroyed because someone started a rumor that there's gold hidden at their center. Maybe they read the news from Costa Rica. Skeptics argue that the sphere may not have been man-made at all, but formed by a process called concretion, when minerals come together in the spaces between sediment grains and form a sort of natural cement. Thanks for watching DTR. Don't forget to push that subscribe button. Up next, new and strange science discoveries.
A three-eyed beetle was grown in a lab. In just the last month, researchers at Indiana University have intentionally grown a fully functional extra eye right in the middle of a common beetle's forehead. The research was made to figure out the biological mechanisms that rely on pre-existing